And Cheryl really challenges us speakers to come up with original content when we get up here. And this is my 4th time speaking here. At the very first social media Tulsa, I thought, wow, I'm going to give this like amazing presentation that's just going to blow everyone out of the water and just take this whole thing to the next level. And I got there, and every single presentation before mine totally took social media to the next level and totally blew everyone's mind. So I'm like, wow. Every single talk is just amazing and wonderful and has great content. This is something unique and different, and this is something I want to be a part of for a long time. So that was day 1 of this whole thing, and now we've been at this a few times. So, you know, when I come up here, I really want to step up my game. I say all that to say that I've been working on this talk for a few weeks, and I finished it this morning, and I have no idea how long it's going to take. So I may be up here 10 minutes or 3 hours. I have no idea. But I am the in-house graphic designer at CAP Tulsa. We administer the Head Start program for the city. We have 13 early childhood education centers all over the city. And we have 600 employees. It's a very large organization. And we spend our time making sure that when kids get into kindergarten, they're prepared. They have the skills, the knowledge, the social skills, and they know the types of things that they know, that they need to know once they get into kindergarten. And that, as our tagline says, helps families succeed. By the time those kids grow up, their kids, in our mission, our vision, is actually one of anti-poverty. So when those kids grow up, their kids will not be born into poverty. So we look at ourselves not necessarily as an education nonprofit, we look at ourselves as an anti-poverty nonprofit. So we have a little bit bigger a vision than, I would say, most of the Head Start programs in the country. A little bit about me. When I'm not working at Community Action Project, I manage a LinkedIn group called Tulsa Networking Professionals. It's the largest LinkedIn group in Tulsa, with, as of last week, 7,157 members. And I also manage the Tulsa Food Trucks page, which has, again, as of last week, 6,698 likes. That Tulsa Food Trucks page started last year with, I think, like 15 people. So to grow it from 15 to 6,698 is pretty cool. It's been a fun ride. And when I'm not doing any of that, I volunteer for Coach for Tulsa, Tulsa Now, edX Tulsa, and the 61st and Peoria Task Force. And I do a bunch of other stuff. And so what we're talking about today is collaboration. I would say probably the 2 questions I get asked the most is, do you ever speak? The answer is no, by the way. And how do you get done everything you get done? How do you have your hand in all of these different groups and all these different projects? And I would say that the way that I accomplish that is that I'm a very collaborative person. I connect with others, I find common ground, and I solve problems, like I was talking about earlier. And so when I was challenged to sort of talk about what I do and how I do it, I really struggled with this because for me it's like, Carlos, how do you breathe? Carlos, how do you walk? How do you put one foot in front of the other? I don't understand that. So it was really a challenge to me to look at what I do, how I do it, and hopefully I can communicate that. And so I came up with about 3 sort of mantras, for lack of a better phrase, that I sort of keep in my head all the time. And the first one is that connecting to someone is good. Connecting someone to someone else is better. So I can connect to Danica, and I know she's a really great graphic designer. And that's good. That's good. We'll have a good relationship. We may work together on a project. We may, whatever. But if I can connect her with someone else, That's better. It creates community. What the benefits of that are is that, number one, it gives you focus. Somebody may do something better than I do it. Somebody may be a better illustrator. Somebody may be a better website developer, can code websites better than I can. Someone may be a better ad buyer. I don't know how to buy ads. Someone else knows how to do that. I don't have to take on everything by myself. I can focus on what I'm good at, connect people to other people, and have them focus on what they're good at. And the other thing it does is it helps you become a linchpin. So if you're a Seth Godin fan, if I am, he writes in his book about being a linchpin, being indispensable. So I'm not just a graphic designer, because there's 50 bajillion graphic designers in Tulsa. But what makes me unique? What makes me a linchpin? What makes me indispensable? Like Los was talking about, what makes people say, I need what Carlos Moreno has? Not just, I need another graphic designer. The other sort of mantra I keep in my head all the time is that there's no such thing as competition. It doesn't exist. When I first started Toy Drum as a graphic design agency that I owned from 01 to 07, when we first got started, nobody had any clue who we were. There were big ad agencies, your Littlefields, your Ackerman McQueens, your Shipknock Turbos, and no one had any idea of who Toy Drum was. So what we would do is when we found clients that were too big for us, we didn't try to bite off more than we could chew. We would refer them to the agencies. We would say, you know what, we think Littlefield can handle this part of your project or your entire project better than we can. So I'd call them and I would say, we've got a client for you. And they would say, why are you calling us? You're giving us business? Are you crazy? Are you stupid? And we would say, no, you're good at this, we're good at that, and we're giving you someone that we think you could really work well with together. What that did, all the agencies knew who we were, because we refer business to all of them. So when they found clients who were too small for them, guess who they would refer those clients to? And we ended up getting a lot of really great projects. We ended up working on RibCrib. US Cellular was a client. Namco, anybody ever heard of Biz Pac-Man? Namco was a client. So we really were able to build our business just from this mantra, that there isn't any such thing as competition. For us, we collaborated with every other firm in town. Every other firm in town collaborated with us. I guess the third thing that I try to keep in mind all the time is that I'm best when I'm trying to figure out what to do when there is no playbook, when there aren't any instructions. My wife gets mad at me because I try to fix things and not look at the instructions. So again, Seth Godin talks about this idea in his linchpin book about emotional work. So there's the skills that you have. You can be a great engineer. You can be a great thinker. You can be a great mechanic. You can be a great photographer, whatever it is. So you know the mechanics of it. You know the technology of it. But what are you doing that's your emotional work? What are you passionate about? What are you doing that takes that technical skill and translates it into something that's unique and that's yours and that nobody else can do the way you do it? So when you find that passion, passion finds a way to solve those problems. You're passionate about it, you're going to figure it out. You're going to find a way to make it work no matter what, because that is your passion and you want to get this done. So I've got sort of three things that answer kind of the question of how to, right? How to be more collaborative, how to take some of that sense of social media and really leverage it. So the first thing that you want to do, and Becky talked about this in her talk, is define your goals. Write them down. Know know what you want to get out of your project, know what you want to get out of this relationship, know what you want to get out of what you're working on. Also, I would add to that and define your needs. So you have goal X, and this is what you need to get there. You're a photographer. That's great. Your goal is to have this awesome art show at this gallery. Okay? What do you need to do to get there? So work backwards, right? Don't work forwards, work backwards. Okay? If I want to have a show at this gallery, I need to figure out what my subject is going to be. I need to pitch it to that gallery. I need to convince them that I'm going to be able to sell a bunch of my art. You work backwards and you figure out what you need, who you need to get to know. When you have written down your goals and when you have written down your needs, you can find opportunities more clearly. When they come up, you're able to spot them more easily. As I mentioned earlier, our organization's mission and goal is family success. It's anti-poverty. We want families to go from being low-income families to being middle and high-income families. We focus on education. We administer the Head Start program, so we teach 1, 2, and 3-year-olds. There's a lot of other things that surround how families can be successful. They need a lot of other stuff, not just that their kids are educated. So we partner with Emergency Infant Services, Family and Children's Services, the United Way. I mean, I have a folder, so I'm graphic designer, Cap, right? I have a folder at work that's nothing but logos of other nonprofits. We collaborate with so many of them that I have to have a folder with a bunch of subfolders to organize everyone that we collaborate with. So I'll just point out just one project that we work on. When we talked to the food bank, they wanted to be able to be better at distributing, not just having low-income families come to them, but distributing food to low-income neighborhoods. So we said, well, we've got a bunch of schools in low-income neighborhoods. So why don't you bring a truck of food to our schools and have the parents be able to organize a farmer's market, parents and volunteers organize a farmer's market after school at some of our sites. It's worked out great. They do what they do super well, we do what we do super well, and families benefit. We have an entire department in our organization called Growing Together that is a collaborative team. The entire purpose of the organization is collaboration so that neighborhoods can do better. If you go to, is it growingtogether.co? Yes. So you go to growingtogether.co and you look at partnerships, there's just an entire page of organizations that we partner with to meet these goals in these low-income neighborhoods. And it's a methodology in neighborhood revitalization called collective impact, if you want to kind of Google that and read more about it. And then we have an entire other department in our organization that does nothing. The department's called Innovation Lab, okay? So it does nothing but research and development. And what we do is try to find out what are best practices, what works in other neighborhoods. One of our projects is called Risk to Ready. We partnered with UCLA to measure risk factors like physical health, mental health, knowledge and skills in math, knowledge and skills in reading, motor skills, those kinds of things. Measure those risk factors in kindergartners so that in neighborhoods we can find out what programs work best. So do kids in this specific neighborhood need more health and wellness types of programs? Do kids in this other neighborhood need more physical health and motor skills type of development? Do kids in neighborhood C need more math and reading help? So not only are we able to build all the research and help have partner with UCLA to help us do all that research, But then we were able to say, okay, instead of blanketing this neighborhood with 50 programs, and we have no idea which ones will be most effective, we can now pinpoint and say, this specific program is what's needed most in this specific neighborhood. And we've done all the research. Now we're getting to the phase where we're giving that research away, and we're giving the tools to build on top of it away as open source software. So we're using an open source model to say, these tools are, we've done the research, we've done the homework, we've paid for all this. Now we're going to give it away to neighborhoods to build on it and improve what they do because they know how to do it best. So the second thing in this sort of how-to session is finding common ground. So kind of some ideas underneath finding common ground would be keeping an open mind, keeping a creative mind. Remember I was talking earlier about thinking of design and creativity as problem solving and showing your passion. Like I said, I work on, for the last year, I've been on this volunteer organization called the 61st Peoria Task Force. So we had different committees, and the committees talked about transportation, talked about education, and talked about public safety, all these different things that the neighborhood needs to revitalize this place. Yeah. And we went to the Parks Board and said, this is our big idea. We want to build a community center at a park. The Parks Board said, no way, no how. We don't want to do this. This is a bad idea. Forget it. Meeting's over. Sorry, goodbye. And we were really upset. We were really angry that the Parks Board just said, flat out, we don't want this. And one of the members of the Park Board actually wrote an op-ed in the Tulsa World talking about why they didn't want to have this as a part of the park. And so I tagged her on Facebook. And I said, you're wrong. Here's the reasons why you're wrong. I completely disagree. I am so angry at you. Blah, 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 blah. So I tagged her so she notices it and she comments back. And we start this like 2-day flame war on Facebook about policy decisions in the 61st and Peoria neighborhood. And I was like, all right, this is turning into just a disaster, this hot mess. So I emailed her and I said, look, we clearly do not agree on how to help this neighborhood, but you're passionate about this neighborhood, I'm passionate about this neighborhood. Let's just sit down and have coffee. And let's just talk about it. And I actually didn't expect her to respond. She did. She said, you're right. I'm passionate about this neighborhood. You're passionate about this neighborhood. Let's sit down and talk. So we did. Now, I am super tree-hugging, hippie, Democrat, blah, 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 blah. Right? Beard-loving, hipster, coffee-drinking, Prius driving, all that, right? So, and if you saw, Twitter feed and Facebook, I mean, it's just completely obvious, right? There's no hiding. Personal brand, right? And she is completely, I don't think there's any demographic or psychographic point that you could point out where we matched. Conservative, she has a law degree, she makes a ton of money, all this, everything's completely the opposite. But we decide that we're going to have coffee and talk about this. Turns out that we had some similar ideas. Well, community center might not be the best idea, because what these families need is not just go someplace, get some social services, and go home. They need ways that they can get out of the situation that they're in. They need skills development. They need to learn how to write resumes. They need to learn how to start their own businesses. They need to learn how to grow their own food. They need to learn how to solve problems and get out of the situation that they're in. And we found common ground there, such that we're now working together on a couple of projects. And I've got some ideas that she helped me develop that we're going to be working on, and it'll be pitched to the neighborhood, pitched to the city council, and pitched to the parks board. Right? So that kind of stuff doesn't happen all that often. Because she could have very just easily said, you know, this guy's crazy, he's stupid, I don't want anything to do with him. She could have just blocked me on Facebook, and that would be the end of that. But we sort of fought through it and found common ground and figured out what is it that we share. Let's leverage that and work from there. The Arabian Horse Show, when they were coming into Tulsa County, I think this was last year, reached out to us and said, would you like us to bring some of our horses to some of your kids and have the kids meet the horses? And on the surface, it sounded like a pretty good idea. And then we started thinking, you know what? Big, huge Arabian show horse, tiny 2-year-old, not maybe such a great idea. We're pretty scared about this. Initially, we said, no, we're going to talk about it because we're not sure. And we were very skeptical that, you know, this something could work. But instead of just closing that door, we sort of left it open with them and kept talking to them about, have you thought about this? Have you thought about, because, you know, maybe they didn't realize that our kids were so young. We're talking, again, 2 to 3-year-olds. By talking to them and working things out, they were able to bring horses that were trained with children, horses that were maybe a little bit older and more docile, instead of young and skittish. So they were able to really tailor a program that could work with us very, very well. And it ended up being a great opportunity because a lot of those families don't get a chance to interact with these kinds of animals, and they certainly wouldn't be able to afford to go to the horse show. So that's another example of, you know, at first that door could have easily just been closed. But we decided to keep it open and find common ground. So probably the third thing, in terms of considering how to be more collaborative, is to think of projects and think of things that you're working on in terms of small teams. So you want your project, you want a goal, you want to accomplish something, maybe you have 3 goals in your business, but you want to split those up into teams. And your teams need to be limited to a few problem-solving individuals. What do I mean by problem-solving? A problem solver is someone who knows how to reach out and ask for help. A problem solver isn't necessarily the one who knows how to do it. A problem solver is someone who knows how to find the answer. So I may not know everything there is to know about XYZ. One of the new projects that we're working on at Tulsa is a mobile app. Building a mobile app. We don't know anything about building mobile apps. We have absolutely no clue about mobile apps. So the last 3 months for us has been a huge learning experience. But what we do know how to do really well is reach out and ask for help. So we know who the other nonprofits are in town and in the region who are working on mobile app projects. We know developers of mobile apps. So we're bringing them in and we're having meetings with them and we're talking to them about how do you do this, what goes into a mobile app, what kind of budget do we need to be looking at. We're reaching out and answering those questions before we spend any money on building a mobile app. And we could very easily throw $500,000 at someone and say, build a mobile app for us. But before we spend a penny, and before we even decide what the scope of the project is and how much we want to spend and how we want to spend the money, we want to know that it's really going to work. And so we're having those meetings and months and months and months of research development meetings, talking to other people to figure out, even to at first find out what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know about this. So we need to reach out and we need to ask for help. So problem solvers, what do problem solvers do? As I mentioned earlier, they connect others to others. So again, they may not be the one with all the answers, but they know how to get those answers. They connect the dots. In a previous life, I worked for Kathy Taylor's mayoral campaign. And at the end of it all, she said, "Carlos, you really know how to connect dots." She didn't say I was a great graphic designer. I did a pretty good job, and Brad Bernard and I worked on a lot of video and a lot of the marketing. But what she really saw in me was that I knew how to connect dots. And I've sort of embraced that ever since. Problem solvers don't believe in competition. Problem solvers are not afraid to take risks. So you leap off that cliff and you don't know how you're going to land. But somehow, some way, you're going to land, and if you break your legs, eventually they'll be fixed. So passion finds a way, right?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You're not going to find it, even within your own company, individuals that are really easy to get along with. You're going to find those that are going to butt heads with you. I don't care what you do or what you say, how nice you are. And you want to break your legs. So,
Maybe not.
so,
At least they'll break their legs at work.
on a professional level, how do you really deal with somebody in your group who is acting like a bully? You know, you treat them like they are a bully. Just so that, so that whenever you are faced with that situation, you can confidently solve that problem.
Yeah. So I never dealt with bullies well. I didn't really know how to do that as a kid. And I didn't really know how to fight either. But I would make them laugh. So, I don't know, and you know, that may be a conversation that we have offline. But you know, I would again just go back to finding common ground. You know, finding, and maybe there isn't any, and maybe you just need to avoid them. But finding common ground. You know, to me that's the way to really diffuse. And I did that a lot growing up through laughter and through humor. And I would make the teacher laugh, and you know, I wouldn't get in trouble that way because the teacher would be laughing.
But you're going to find people who are arrogant
Sure.
enough to where they believe their idea is greater than anything that they're
Yeah.
communicating.
And to that I would say, when you're working on projects together, you can do a little bit of voodoo to convince them that your idea is actually their idea. You know, finding that common ground and saying, you know what, this is a really good idea you had. But it was a really conversation that, you know, so we can get into that in a little bit. But going back to this idea of managing projects and having teams, your teams need to be small. So I would say teams need to be maybe 3, 4, 5. If you start getting into more than 6, 7, 8, what happens is that groups are less creative than individuals. So has anybody ever heard of design by committee? When you get a committee of like a dozen people and they all want to design a logo, it ends up just looking like a big giant mess. So your teams need to be small, flexible, because groups are less creative than individuals. So in a small team of 3, 4, 5 people, each one of those individuals and their skills are able to sort of shine. One of the organizations that I work with is called Code for Tulsa. And interestingly enough, programmers like to spend their spare time programming. I don't know why, but they love it so much that they do it on their off hours too. But Code for Tulsa is a really cool group because Code for Tulsa, they're programmers who spend their spare time programming, but they're programming cool projects for the city. So we've worked with Tulsa Transit, we've worked with the fire department, we've worked with the library, food bank, INCOG, a bunch of other organizations. And so one of the things that we're collaborating now on is a project with a database that our regional planning group works with, and that's a database of neighborhood organizations. So what Code for Tulsa is doing is taking that database of neighborhood associations and plugging them in so that when you go to, we haven't really named or branded the project yet, but it's kind of an idea that we're working on. So the idea is you go to a website, you type in your address, and you get to know where your nearest neighborhood association is and where they're meeting, who to contact, and all that type of stuff. And it's working with a group that's at the city that's all about open source technology. So if you go to Open Tulsa, the city of Tulsa actually has a page on their website that talks about opening up their data sets and opening up their municipal data to organizations that want to build on that data and make these tools useful for the public. And so we've got a lot of sort of subgroups that are working all at the same time, all on these different things. We know we need a team that knows programming really, really well, so we're going to program this website. We're going to work with this INCOG database. We know that we need a team to sort of spread the word about this stuff. And so we need a group of individuals that are really good at PR and being in front of the media and writing articles and things like that. And we know we need this sort of political angle. You know, we need to be able to talk to the mayor and city council and all these politicians and all this and all these city meetings on their level and in their language, so they can understand the kinds of things that we're doing. And because the term hacker has a sort of negative connotation in our culture, but to the hackers, hacker is, I don't practice what I preach. Like this is what my notes look like in real life. And I find myself, drawing a lot of this kind of stuff more often than working in Adobe Illustrator, because it's these sort of ideas and connecting ideas that's more the type of work that I do. And social media can be very much this sort of just begging for likes, right? So I'm just posting a cat picture and just hoping you like it so I get more likes, right? And you end up looking, a lot like a used car salesman. And just please buy my stuff. I'll discount it. Instead, I really think that when you start taking social media to the next level, it becomes this sort of sense of collaboration. So here I am, here you are. How can we work together on stuff? How can we make a difference? How can we connect your passion with my passion and make it something really cool? Think of yourselves as a collector of people. So you're not a photographer, you're not an artist, you're not a programmer, you're not a nonprofit organization, you're a collector of people. And what do you do when you collect those people is you connect them. So I've connected with a lot of people. I need to collect them all and have this group work on this, and that group work on that, and that group work on that. And maybe I'm involved in all these groups. I'm not necessarily the one that has to do all the work in all the groups. I just have to be the guy who connects people and collects them. So be a linchpin. Be indispensable. Be that person that says, Carlos probably knows a guy who knows how to do that. Right? So because I've connected others to others, I'm the guy who everyone comes to get connected. Right? That's how I became a linchpin. And design is more about making things look pretty. Design is about new ways of thinking. And is that the end? I think that's the end. That's all I got. Right. Thanks a lot. Any questions? Any other questions? Yeah.
I just have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I met somebody who gave a talk when I was in the MBA program. And this is, I want to say, like 2000, maybe 2005. Actually, I met him through a professor. And he was doing local search engine optimization, so local SEO. Whereas the focus had normally been on, hey, reach as many people as you possibly can. This was local. Well, I ended up loving what this guy did so much that literally when I found people who had just started a business, I would say, you have to do local optimization. I know this guy. He is absolutely fantastic. Well, I ended up getting so many jobs from him. He's like, Kate, do you realize in the last month I've gotten something like 15, 20 clients from you? And then he brought me in to work on a major consulting project with him. I mean, and I'm actually now, after a number of years I hadn't spoken to him, I'm now working on another project with him. So doing these connections, in other words, you know, always keeping, in a sense, other people in mind. And it's like, okay, what can I do to help people accomplish their goals? That, in a sense, becomes part of your chain. And it's really amazing the strong connections that you get from this. I mean, now across, California, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I now live in Florida. I mean, I have really strong connections in all of these different states, and they follow you because they know what you've done, and they know that you still maintain those connections.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes back to Zig Ziglar. You know, he said that if you want to get what you want, the way to do it is to help others get what they want.
Right.
So, and you'll never lack once you've been able to really do that and get well at it. When you can help people get what they want, you will always reap the benefits of that. So it's give it away to get it back, right? So, cool. Thanks a lot. Enjoy your Girl Scouts.